Hey, tech builders. Welcome to Tech Talks with Paul. I'm Paul, your host. Today we're going to talk a little bit about NitroDome and what makes it unique. Over the past six or 7 months, we've been talking to a lot of different projects about NitroDome. And to be quite honest, I don't think they completely understand how totally unique and interesting NitroDome is. The NFT portal that we have, the Nitro decks, there's so many components of NitroDome that are exciting and interesting, and the way that we're actually doing Web3 gaming is unique and innovative, and it's actually a lot easier and less intrusive than the current way that Web3 gaming is done. So let's jump right into it and let's talk about what makes NitroDome's Nitro portal unique. So the typical way when you go to add a Web3 to a Web2 game, is you take an existing game that's maybe fun, you got lots of players on, they're having a good time, and then you want to put Web3 in it. And what you end up with is an unfun Web3 game, something that's not even enjoyable. Why? Because you're trying to cram so many things into an existing program. And the problem is you also have devs that may or may not understand it. So you're putting in a crypto wallet, so now every user has to have a crypto wallet, whether they want to use one or whether they don't use one, whether it's abstracted through Google login, whatever, but they're still getting a crypto wallet. Not everybody wants that. And then you also have gas fees. Now, the problem with the gas fees is who pays them? Do you pay them? Does the project pay them? Do the users pay them? Who pays for the gas fees? But it is something that has to be dealt with. And sometimes that implementation is clunky. And then there's a complicated onboarding process. The other issue is every single game out there has their own way of doing their onboarding process. Now, some of them it's just a simple login with Google, but other ones it's way more complicated. And then you have isolated assets. Every single game out there is building their own Web3 implementation, and they're doing it differently. This game does it differently than that game, than this game, than that game. And so you actually have to determine what's this game doing with my assets. And then worse yet, is this whole idea of asset ownership. Yeah, you own your assets. You can bring them out to the blockchain. You can trade them or whatever. The problem is that asset can only go into that one game. So yeah, you own it, but you can only use it here. It's like having, a game where you have an axe that you can harvest things with, and then you can bring it out. But then there's another game that uses axes, but you can't use it over there because that game is implemented completely differently. It doesn't use your NFTs, and there's no way to get that axe into that other game. So sure, you own the axe, but you can only use it in one place. So it's an isolated assets. And then there's this burdensome, unproven security. This is huge because what you're taking Web2 developers, typical game developers, that may not even understand blockchain, and they're trying to put blockchain in without really understanding all of the security risks and how contracts can be exploited and how blockchain can be exploited. So you end up with an insecure environment. So while you might be playing one game and then it gets exploited and you lose everything. And how can you trust? Because it's an unproven technology. And then there's transaction delays. So you get items, and then you're going to turn them into NFTs. Well, how long does that take? Or at the end of a level, when you're finishing up the level, there's a transaction. You got to wait for that. Sometimes if the blockchain's busy, that takes a long time. So there's always the transaction delays. And what does that do? That interrupts the fun. And then this is one that we specifically address with NitroDome is the portal implementation due to a lack of knowledge. There is a very heavy lift going from Web 2 to Web 3 and understanding all of the caveats. Now, there are systems out there that provide APIs that you actually have to weave into your code. The problem there is now you've actually potentially put vulnerabilities into your code. You've implemented breaking changes. It can be very problematic. So we feel that doing it this way and putting Web3 inside of a game has so many problems. So you end up with a poor user experience. Now, the other way to do is I've seen Web3 projects go out there and build a game. And the problem that they have is they're building with the wrong focus. They're not building with this idea of let's make a fun game and then also make it do blockchain stuff. And so what they end up with is an unfun game or a non-fun game that has blockchain, but it's focused on the wrong things. It's not focused on user retention and user interaction and having fun, which is what games are all about. And so you end up with a lot of frustrated users. So you end up with the same problem. And you know why you end up with the same problem? Because you have to have all of the same features built into your game when they just interrupt the fun. And you end up with poor user experience. So what's the NitroDome difference? Well, the NitroDome difference is we decided that there was really no reason to put all of this blockchain technology inside of a game. Let the game be the game. Let the game developers focus on what they do best, which is make fun and engaging games. And let's take the blockchain completely out of it. Now, every game out there has a database of sometimes. Sometimes it's local, sometimes it's on a server. There's lots of different places that your database can be. But every one of them has a database of some kind, runs on the back end. So you have the game database back end, the Nitro portal, which is NitroDome's Web 2 to Web 3 bridge, connects directly to the database. Now, and then Nitro portal then connects to multiple blockchains. And you read that right, multiple blockchains. Now, if you think about this, we're actually taking the back end of a database without touching the code, and we're allowing interaction with the Nitro portal, which is our bridge, which interacts with multiple blockchains seamlessly. It's a beautiful situation where you're not actually having to change and break your code. So what do you end up with? With a fun non-blockchain game with Nitro portal, you get no crypto wallet in your game, no gas fee issues in your game, no complicated onboarding process in your game, no asset isolation in your game, no risk of unproven security in your game, no transaction delays, and no game code changes. I should have made that much bigger because that's probably one of the biggest selling points of what we do. No game code changes, period. And so you end up with a great user experience. So we end up with a non-blockchain game with Nitro portal. You have players aren't required to use the blockchain. So your players can actually choose Web 2, Web 3, how they want to play their game, but they're not required to participate in blockchain because not everybody's a believer, not everybody's ready to take that step. Your game stays fun because you're not changing anything in your game at all. Simple onboarding process. So every game that actually uses the portal, and it's so simple, I can guarantee we're going to get lots of adoption on this. You onboard once to the NitroDome website, and now you can actually integrate with all of these games, and it's a single onboarding process for all of them together, and you can interact from game to game. You have cross-game and cross-chain assets. Now, I should also put cross-platform. And I put the icons here to showcase that since our game actually hooks to the back end of the game, the platform that the game's hosted on, whether it be PC, Mac, Xbox, Switch, whatever it happens to be, is irrelevant. We're hooking directly to the database. And then you're also, since we're hooking to the Nitro portal, which hooks to the blockchain, that means that we can hook to almost any blockchain out there, any EVM compatible blockchain, which there's hundreds, could be thousands by the time you see this video, of blockchains out there that you can connect to through the Nitro portal. So your assets are free. And they're also free to go cross-game, which is quite fantastical if you think about it, that I could take this axe and a developer could say, look, I have a game that uses axes. How about we use these axes from this other game because my buddy built it or because it's a really popular game, but I want to use their axes in my game. Boom. Implements the axe in their game, and now you can actually use the Nitro portal to take the axe out of one game and take it into another. So now you have cross-game assets. That's an incredible, incredible capability that we've just barely touched on how awesome that's going to be. And then you have on-chain security from experienced devs. By not requiring that Web3 be implemented into a game, we're actually using technology out of the game, on-chain, that's been proven, it's been vetted. I've been in the business for 7+ years. The head developer, the CEO of NitroDome, has been in development for 7+ years. We have an incredible depth of knowledge, and what we're doing is techniques that have been used over and over and over again to secure. So we're not new to the security, and we've implemented on hundreds of projects. So it's proven security. And then there's no in-game delays. You didn't change the game code. The game continues to be fun. In fact, your users will never even know that there's that there's potential blockchain activity on the back end of the game. They have no clue. And then there's no game code changes. Once again, really want to hit that. No game code changes. What that means is fast, safe, secure. You focus on having fun, and you can have a good experience. So how NitroDome elevates your user experience in gaming. Effortless gameplay. Users continue to play. They continue to have fun. Doesn't change a thing for them. Instant access across games. Because the portal is completely external from the game, I can now take assets and go from one database through the portal to blockchain, and then I can go the reverse. I can go from blockchain through the portal to another game. So now I can have cross-game assets, and I can also do cross-chain assets, which is just amazing, and then cross-platform. I can't even imagine how fun it's going to be to see what game developers are going to come up with when they actually get their hands on the portal and start using it and start thinking of new and innovative and interesting ways to use the portal. And then there's no learning curve. And this is the other thing. The way we built the system is we do 95% plus of all of the heavy lifting of the implementation through our API. We have a portal API that we manage, that we control, that does all of the blockchain stuff. And then we hand off a very small API to the game developer that they implement on the back end, external from their game, that only talks to their database and talks to our portal API. And has very simple commands in there. The learning curve that's necessary is minuscule. It's something that I believe we can have up and running with a matter of 1 to 2 hours on a game. And then enhanced trust and security. Your assets as a player, and even as a developer, you worry about security and safety for your players. Since it's on chain, it's by trusted devs. It's an environment that is not new. It's been well vetted with contracts that are well vetted. They're safe and secure. And then this is key: enjoyment first design. You're not doing blockchain first design. You're not doing Web3 based design. You're doing enjoyment first design, which is every game developer's passion, which is exactly why you got into it and exactly what you should be focused on. Let us at NitroDome handle the Web3 part for you. So if you want to experience NitroDome today, here's a huge list of links. Take a look at them. Get in touch with us. There'll be more follow-up videos, but we'll talk about a whole lot more of what NitroDome has to offer. We haven't even touched on our NFT decks, our AMM, our marketplace. There's so many other aspects of NitroDome. You're going to want to stay in touch. Until next time, keep building awesome tech.